What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the top prospects in each UFC division. Now, I kind of haven't talked about the prospects so much inside the organization, but these are the guys that need to get more love, that are up and coming, that you guys might not know about as well. These are some of the best fighters in each division, but they are either younger, don't have quite the name recognition to them, and genuinely are starting to make their way throughout the organization. And I kind of want to talk about these individual guys. First off, I want to get a disclaimer. In the light heavyweight and heavyweight division, I couldn't really think of like incredible prospects to name, so I just took the two best up-and-coming fighters who might not be known about as much as some of the other guys, but two guys that I think could 100% do things later inside their UFC careers. But genuinely, I look at the UFC and there's just such a good time for blossoming talent, especially in the lower divisions, and I genuinely think each one of these fighters that I named today has the ability to go out throughout their career and genuinely make headlines in the very near future. But before we jump into the episode, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications. Just you guys are always notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about the best prospect in each UFC division. Starting in the UFC Flyweight division, a guy that I'm really looking at is Joshua Van. Now, he did take a loss this year to Charles Johnson, but he was winning that fight, and it was kind of just a freak knockout at the last part of the round. He's won at UFC 310. He won at UFC 306. He's been very active this year and a very good fighter. He is incredibly young. He's one of the youngest UFC fighters on the roster. I think he's 23 or 24 years old. It's genuinely someone who is blossoming into his own accord inside that UFC Flyweight division. He is such a good fighter, and I really look at how well-rounded he is and all the skills that he really possesses, and I see a future with him inside the UFC to where he could possibly be the UFC Flyweight champion, considering that the Flyweight division isn't the most stacked of all the different divisions inside the organization. I look at different guys like the top of the top are amazing. Pantoja's really good, Moreno's really good, Royval's really good, Cara France is really good, but really there's not that kind of depth that these other divisions have, and I do think that Joshua Van is such a very skilled fighter that he could be in the conversation up there with those top caliber flyweights, and really I see that he has a great striking and one of the best and most dynamic strikers in the UFC in my opinion, but also can stop the takedowns, can do everything that you can ask for, and genuinely is a great UFC flyweight. I want to put more recognition into Joshua Van's name. He's fought a lot this year. He's got at least 2 wins and 1 losses, but he has looked amazing in those wins, and even that loss that he had, he did look really good in that. That's why Joshua Van is my top prospect inside the UFC Flyweight division. Now, inside the UFC Bantamweight division, it's easily got to be Peyton Talbot. First off, I want to shout out Marcus McGee. He's one of my favorite fighters and a good up-and-coming prospect coming up, but I cannot put him over Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot is super young. He is one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC. I think he's got 3 wins within the organization. One of those in his last fight came 19 seconds into the fight where he hit a combo. It was like a jab, right hand right down the pipe, but he did something that was a little bit different. He was really switching up the timing of his punches to where he threw Giannis Garamori off so much and ultimately sat him down, looked at him, was like, bro, you're not going to fight anymore. I'm just going to finish this thing off. In the fight before that, he fought a good up-and-coming prospect, Cameron Simon, hit him with a vicious knee in that first round to ultimately get the finish in the second. Peyton Talbot is such a dynamic striker, and I really look at him, and I think he's going to be a top 5 UFC bantamweight out there, and that's something crazy to say considering that the bantamweight division is maybe the most stacked division within the UFC right now. You got the top guys, Merab, Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan, Umar Nurmagomedov, all those guys out there, and I think eventually if Peyton Talbot keeps improving on his skills and keep doing those little nuances inside the organization, I truly think he's going to be able to go out there and really exploit these guys, because he is so good, so fast, so tall for the bantamweight division. He's incredibly intelligent and is one of these guys who I see flourishing for many years to come within the UFC. He's fighting at UFC 311, I think, as the featured prelim. I think he's going to be one of these amazing stars that the UFC is always going to push, but Peyton Talbot 100% is my best UFC bantamweight prospect. Now, in the UFC Featherweight division, this guy I think is going to be a top 5 featherweight, 100%. That's Jean Lord Silva, coming out the camp of fighting nerds. Jean Silva is that good. He is so good on the feet. He is such a good striker. He's got a great grappling game as well. And in a span of 2 weeks, he's had 3 fights in the organization, and he's had 3 finishes. International Fight Week, he missed weight by a couple pounds, sadly, and he fought Charles Jourdain and knocked him out. 2 weeks later, he was like, Dana White, I need to come back and fight. I don't care if it's at featherweight or lightweight. So he took on Drew Dober at UFC Denver and absolutely put on one of the best fights of the year, beating Drew Dober, I believe, by doctor stoppage in the third round due to an incredibly massive cut over the left or right eye of Dober. That was an incredible performance for Jean Silva, and he is one of the best charismatic fighters inside the organization. He has so much emotion when he goes in there and fights, and he is one of my favorite fighters to watch. Now, I think he's one of the, as much as he's super intelligent, he also throws caution to the wind all the time, which can really throw him into different situations. About 99% of the time, he's really intelligent out there, and about that 1% of the time, he throws himself into such stupid positions. But really, Jean Silva is gonna be a prominent figure in the featherweight division for a very long time. He could definitely go up to lightweight as well. And this dude is so dangerous that no one wants to fight him. And genuinely, Jean Silva is an absolute menace out there, and I cannot wait to watch him fight. I think he's returning at UFC Seattle, but I'm not 100% sure. This guy is an incredible prospect, one of my favorite fighters in the organization, and 100% Jean Silva is the best featherweight prospect right now. Staying in the camp of fighting nerds down in Brazil, I'm going to go Mauricio Rufy as the #1 prospect inside the lightweight division. This dude just headlined the opening, he just fought in the opening slot of Madison Square Garden pay-per-view, Jones versus Miocic, and he looked incredible against that Peruvian fighter. Also, he beat Jamie Mullarkey at UFC 301, and that was an absolute masterclass. This dude fights like Conor McGregor in his prime. He's a little bit bigger, he's got that power, he's got everything like that. He's literally like a mini copy of McGregor, but genuinely, Mauricio Rufy is going to be a top 10 fighter inside this lightweight division. The only thing that really scares me about him is his cardio moving forward. He does have a cardio problem like Conor McGregor did kind of in his prime, to where he would throw so much caution to the wind that he would just kind of tire out pretty easily in some of his fights. But I look at Rufy, he's got some of the craziest hooks, an incredibly creative fighter, one of the most dynamic strikers inside the UFC, and I see him going incredibly far inside of his UFC career. That fight camp down there in Brazil of the Fighting Nerds is one of the best fighting camps inside the organization, and is genuinely producing some of the best prospects right now inside the organization. Mauricio Rufy, 100% going to be a top 10 lightweight in the very near future, and I think could possibly even challenge for the title if he keeps improving on that grappling game and that cardio situation, because genuinely he is one of the best strikers in the UFC right now. Mauricio Rufy, best prospect in the lightweight division. Now, we're staying down in Brazil, actually, at the camp of Fighting Nerds. If you guys want me to do a full Fighting Nerds breakdown, I will 100% do that for you guys. This is my favorite camp inside the organization, but we're going to stay with Carlos Prates. Now, this dude debuted this year, has 4 fights, 4 finishes, absolute monster out there. And Carlos Prates is a beast. Just knocked out Neil Magny in the first round, touch of death right to the forehead, knocked him out cold. First person to ever knock out Li Jingliang, UFC 305. Fought, I don't know when he fought prior to this year, but genuinely, this dude is an absolute beast. I look at Carlos Prates. He's got great takedown defense as well as probably being one of the hardest pound-for-pound punchers inside the organization. This dude touches you, and you just automatically crumple to the ground or have your life and your soul detached from your body. He is that strong and powerful. He's got some of the greatest technique the UFC has in it right now, and I think that stems from his hundreds of Muay Thai fights that he kind of did prior to coming over to the UFC. Ever since he's been working with the guys like Rufy, Silva, Caio Borralho, he is genuinely down there improving his mixed martial arts game. I think he's one of the best fighting nerds out there. I think he's going to be a top 5 fighter inside that UFC welterweight division. He's got so much skill and ability to really go out there and absolutely dismantle these welterweights, because he's got great takedown defense. He's a great striker, and he's super fun to watch. Considering that he drinks and smokes all the time and goes out there and just bodies fighters is absolutely hilarious to watch. Carlos Prates is a showman, one of the most fun fighters inside the UFC, and genuinely is going to be a prominent staple in the welterweight division for a very long time. Carlos Prates, best UFC welterweight prospect. Now, going to the middleweight division, this guy's fight just got announced with Michael Venom Page, and I'm actually going to say Shara Magomedov. Now, the one problem I have with Magomedov getting into his strength, is his takedown defense really hasn't been tested in any of his fights, because he has only fought strikers, and Michael Venom Page is no different. One of the most dynamic welterweight strikers who's moving up to middleweight. But Shara Bullet, one of the most fun strikers the UFC has ever seen. Last fight, Armen Petrosyan got the double spinning back fist knockout. Also beat Andre Chirkoli at UFC Saudi Arabia. Prior this year, an incredible knockout in that third round after he was kind of not, I don't know if he was losing the fight, but it was definitely competitive. Also beat Michelle Olashechuk by unanimous decision at UFC Abu Dhabi August 3rd. genuinely is one of the most exciting fighters out there. I love watching Magomedov, the Pirate, fight. This dude is an absolute killer out there. He's got some of the most fun striking the UFC has ever seen. Considering that he has one eye and just is an absolute beast on the feet, I don't know how he fights with no depth perception, but genuinely, Magomedov is so good. This dude is an absolute beast. I love watching him fight, and I know that that striking is going to correlate and really cause problems to a lot of different guys in the very, very, very near future. You know, I look at Magomedov, and if he can kind of prove to everyone that that takedown defense can be solved, I think he's going to go out there and be an incredible prospect for many years to come. Magomedov, best UFC middleweight prospect now. So starting in the UFC light heavyweight division, I really didn't have a big prospect who was like really up and coming, but I'm going to say it's Carlos Ulberg. You know, Carlos Ulberg, he lost his first fight in the UFC to Kennedy Nzechukwu and genuinely has pulled off an absolute run ever since. He beat Alonzo Menafield in like 18 seconds, 12 seconds at UFC St. Louis, just beat Volkan Oezdemir at UFC Macau. That was a great fight. Carlos Ulberg looked really good there. And Carlos Ulberg just signed a fight, UFC London against Jan Blachowicz, an incredible test for Ulberg, who is kind of that up-and-coming prospect. This dude has been running through the top 15 in the entire light heavyweight division after that loss to Nzechukwu, and genuinely, Carlos Ulberg is such a dynamic striker. He's got great takedown defenses and is a very good fighter out there to really be able to show this light heavyweight division of that there's levels and that there's a new generation out there. I don't know if he could 100% be champion, but he's such a good counter striker, such a good just, you know, guy out there inside the octagon, and he could 100% cause problems to any single light heavyweight currently. Ulberg is 100% the best prospect in the light heavyweight division, and I have such high hopes for many years to come for Mr. Ulberg. Now going to the UFC heavyweight division, it's kind of same thing as the UFC light heavyweight division, but I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida was undefeated in the UFC prior to a fight 2 fights ago where he fought Curtis Blaydes as the featured prelim at UFC 299. He was winning that fight consistently, but he kind of got caught into a very weird position to where he got rained down with elbows by Blaydes. That fight was really impressive to me as someone who watches Jailton Almeida a little bit, to see him go in there and absolutely out-grapple Curtis Blaydes like to that extent, because he's one of the best UFC heavyweight grapplers. It shows that he is such a good guy to fight on the ground. Now, he might not be that dynamic on the stand-up department and really isn't this like overwhelmingly like well-rounded prospect. He is a specialist in the grappling department, but you know, Jailton Almeida is still a very young fighter inside that UFC heavyweight division. I think because the UFC heavyweights don't have that much grappling, I think he's going to be a very awful stylistic matchup for a lot of these guys. You know, guys like John Jones, Curtis Blaydes, Tom Aspinall are going to go in there and be able to neutralize Almeida pretty easily because they're going to be able to stop the takedowns and absolutely piece him up on the feet. But really, a lot of these guys, Cyril Gahn, maybe even Volkov, Sergey Pavlovich, are going to get taken down and are going to get drowned by Mr. Almeida. Almeida is a very good fighter. I think he's going to possibly be top 5 just because the heavyweight division is a little bit more shallow in some of its talent, but also is a very, you know, has some very good fighters. And I don't think he would ever challenge for a title because the guys like, you know, Aspinall, Jones, maybe even Volkov. I know I kind of said he would struggle a little bit, but he's actually got pretty good takedown defense. And Curtis Blaydes are kind of going to kind of stop Almeida from really being able to go out there and get those massive wins. But Jailton Almeida, probably the best heavyweight prospect right now. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about the best prospect in each UFC division. Kind of want to recap what I had. Joshua Van, best flyweight. Peyton Talbot, best bantamweight. Jean Silva, best featherweight. Carlos Prates, best welterweight. Mauricio Rufy, best lightweight. Magomedov, best middleweight. Carlos Ulberg, best light heavyweight. And Jailton Almeida, best heavyweight prospects. Those are all some guys who I could 100% see making a name for themselves coming up in the very near future, and genuinely are some guys who are going to be very difficult and very hard stylistic matchups for a lot of these other UFC fighters in their respective division. I love watching these prospects fight. They fight, you know, when they come up and fight the actual good guys eventually, like kind of Carlos Prates, Carlos Ulberg, all these guys are kind of doing at this point. It is so fun because you have some of the best fighters fighting some of the best fighters, even though they might not be as well known. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on post notifications just so you guys can always be notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.